In the darkest nights, we find our light. Battered souls, but we won't lose sight. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, we stand tall. United forever. Strength and courage will overcome. Oh, surviving together, victorious, never, never alone. Hand in hand, we'll face the unknown.
We see you, we hear you, and we believe you. Hey, everyone. How you doing tonight? Welcome to Surviving Together, a safe space for trauma survivors to connect and build community on their healing journey, as well as providing trauma-related education for all. And I just realized I didn't bring my webcam up. I had to change locations. I was going to be downstairs, and now I'm upstairs, and I was having audio issues. So I think you guys think this camera's okay. So I think we'll be good for today. So welcome, Carmel. Thank you so much for being here and wrenching for me. I really, really appreciate it. I know people will start dribbling in now that we're live as Speak of the Devil. Not exactly. Hey, Misha, how you doing? I'm so glad that you are here. We have a fabulous interview for you tonight. We are going to be speaking with, you guys can put your comments and questions in the chat as well. For Tammy René, she was raised in a cult, and in addition to, just the trauma from being, raised in a cult and being indoctrinated by that, the trauma that she suffered because of that, there was also other abuse that she suffered during her childhood. And so we're going to be speaking to her about her experience with that, how she got out of it, and how she is, how she started her healing journey and where she is now. It's an amazing story. She's a wonderful person to talk to. So without further ado, let me bring her up here. Hey, Tammy, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you? I'm so honored to be here on this podcast and to get to talk about my story and about, hope in overcoming whatever it is we have to face.
Well, we are just honored to have you here. This is a topic that we have not touched on, the cult trauma aspect of it. We haven't touched on the channel yet. And so I'm really interested to hear, what you have to say about that and how you're, healing from being raised in such an environment went. So why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit? And if you would, just kind of tell us about the cult and kind of what it was and, what your beginnings were like with being raised there.
Okay. Well, I'm Tammy René. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I live in Northern Nevada and have a beautiful life. My life is evidence that regardless of what we're called to go through, we can overcome and build a life that we can thrive in, a life that's uniquely our own and that we can thrive in. And so I'm grateful for this opportunity to share my story. To be honest, I haven't talked a lot about the cult part. It's in my book, but I haven't talked a lot about that. So I think I'd like to just jump right in to the cult aspects of my being raised. So it's kind of difficult, to put in a nutshell, right? I mean, my earliest memories were of my mom hitting my older sister. I mean, I was little. I don't know how old I was, but it was just like this vague thing. And then
Mhm.
my mom screaming and my sister having a bloody nose. My older sister was just a year older than me. And so that's kind of my earliest thing, my earliest cult memories. I was about 6 or 7, I think, maybe 5, somewhere right in there. And so as long as I can remember, my dad just gravitated towards this cult activity. And it wasn't, it was all in secret, right? It was all that his group thought that secrecy is where they had power, right? So
Okay.
it was like done at night in dark. My first memory was in this abandoned building, like
Oh
an
my
abandoned
gosh.
house or
Oh my
something
gosh.
that people were meeting. And there wasn't, I never knew a name of the cult. I know the name of the god that they worshipped, which was Baal, which I found out years later, Old Testament god of
Mhm.
sexual activity and all that kind of thing. Anyway, so mostly what I remember about the cult, well, I remember a lot, but the the main aspects of the cult things where it's like meetings when we went someplace else. There was usually, especially when I was little, because it was a different group because we moved around. So that first group
Mhm.
was animal torture and
Oh.
sacrifice, and it was usually a pet of one of the children present.
Oh
And
my gosh.
which is why, honestly, I love animals. I really do, but I have a hard time connecting
Mm,
because
yeah,
because
makes
of
sense.
that horrific experience. And then always in every group my dad was a part of, there was sexual abuse. And it wasn't like it was just this weird power thing. All of the chants, all the things I learned about the cult, it was because, these men and women felt unempowered, and it felt like they were getting power from the gods to especially to sexually abuse children. I never witnessed like adult kind of stuff in a cult meeting,
Mhm.
right? But those are kind of makes me shaky, to actually speak about these things out loud. But
And take your time with anything, and, of course, you share as much or as little as you feel comfortable with. And I did throw up our trigger warning for everybody in our
right,
audience. We are going to be talking about a lot of sensitive topics. So if you feel that this is just too much for you, you need to back away, please do so. Your mental health is always number one. Um,
right,
Quick
absolutely.
question on that then. Did they feel like, there was something about the sexual act with a child that drew power? I've heard about, because of the pureness of
Mhm.
children, that there's some inherent sense of power from that.
Right, that's part of it. And they have my dad's group. Like I said, you can't put all cults in one basket,
Mm-mm,
right? So
no,
I
right.
only know what my dad's group believed. We had what he called a family Bible. I believe it was stuff that was handed down to him through his mother's side of the family. But there was this old ratty looking, and it was called a Bible, but it wasn't like the Holy Bible, Genesis,
Right.
whatever, like that
Okay.
kind of thing. No, but it was the teachings of this group, and it had weird languages in it, and it was just kind of a bizarre thing. But and as a teenager, of course, I was supposed to learn about this and join voluntarily, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
voluntarily under great duress and torture,
Right.
but they called it voluntarily. But so I had to learn about it. And what they believed is that every person has a power in them, like we have a power
Mhm.
core, which is interesting how they take truth and then they twist it into
Yeah.
something weird and awful, right? And so you can access that power. I don't know how much I want to talk about it, but anyway, but yeah, it's all about trying to access that power and kind of usurping that power for
Mhm.
themselves, like I can steal your power kind of thing. And ultimately, it, as I got older, we're strong individuals. I mean, we grow and we learn, and we're looking around going, hey, this is kind of a crock, right?
Mm,
And so as I became a teenager and I got more resistant to those things, then that's when they introduce drugs. They'll drug you up
okay.
and kind of try to induce all kinds of bizarre stuff. So you have the reality of the trauma, like of the sexual abuse mostly,
Mm-hmm.
kind of mixed in with all this just weirdness. So it just makes you feel like you're crazy. And that's what they always told me. If I ever said anything to anybody, nobody would believe me. I'd be, put in a
Mm-hmm.
rubber room in a straitjacket and never come out again. And I, logically, I can say, well, no, that's not true. But because of the power they had on me and because of the drug inducing traumas, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it just magnified the traumas. Because of that, it felt internally, right? We have our logical voice, but then we have our subconscious voices and we have our internal voices that are screaming other things.
Mm-hmm.
But my logic all day long can tell you, oh, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But in here, it feels like it. And so
Well, and we see that even just with childhood sexual abuse victims, well,
yes,
adult abuse, survivors as well, that they don't come forward for fear of not being believed. So add the
right,
cult aspect onto that, and I can very easily see how you would internalize that belief that, yeah, no one's gonna believe that this is like really real, that this is going
right,
on. Were you going to public school for your education? So you
yes,
were seeing quote unquote normal behavior in people and normal conversations, and
right,
then you went home. That probably helped a little bit with your eventual ability to disconnect a little bit,
right,
right? Versus being homeschooled and just
right.
being in your environment 100%.
Right.
Okay.
I was exposed to a lot of good. Can't say enough about the good influence for good that a just kind teacher can have.
Yo, yeah.
And so
Mhm.
for me, I'm not sure exactly when I started really dissociating.
Mhm.
I think it became really pronounced, like actually absolute different personalities by the time I was a teenager. I
Mhm.
think I started kind of splintering off when I did go to public school, because their trauma happened so I'm thinking the things that are happening at my house, because my
Mhm.
parents didn't just do those things at those meeting places, right? They brought
Mhm.
it to our home, and it was kind of a family thing as well,
They
right?
were invested
Yeah,
100% in this.
invested 100%. So, yeah, so then I remember, like, in 4th grade, or no, 2nd grade, saying something to a friend about some kind of weird sexual thing, and, oh my gosh, did that blow up in my face.
Yeah.
She didn't tell teachers or anything, but, oh, I got bullied, I got made fun of, I got so that's where your brain starts going, "Oh, okay, so
This
not everybody is living
exactly. This isn't
like
normal
I
for
do."
everyone. Wait a minute. This
Right?
doesn't happen at
Yeah,
your house too?
yeah. Anyway,
Right.
so I think, and then as the trauma increased,
Mhm.
and especially as I'm trying, my mom, her big thing was that I was so lucky that she loved me because nobody else would. I was too ugly, I was too stupid. I was born
Mm.
premature, so I remember hearing for the first 5 years of my life that, well, I don't know if you can go to school because you're so stupid, and because you were born
Oh.
early, you're not going to develop all the way. Well,
Mm.
I'm taller than her. I'm 5'7", right? I mean, she had me thinking I was going to be this short, little, underdeveloped somebody.
And you're
And
a
then,
beautiful woman now. I mean, you're just
thank you.
gorgeous.
I think it's about letting go of the shields that keep our
Yeah.
light, you know,
Mhm.
buried, because we all have a light that we're
Mm.
born with. And it's about unburying that light and let it be seen. But thank you. I appreciate that. But the more as in school, it turns out school's pretty easy for me. And so then I had teachers saying, oh, you know, you're way ahead, in
Yeah.
the reading program, little reading books we had
Yeah.
and all that. So I kept having this bigger and bigger dichotomy between what I was being
Certainly.
taught at home and what I was
Mhm.
experiencing and being told at school.
Yeah.
And so school kind of became my identity. That was my safe place. And fortunately, I had a kindergarten teacher that got to also be my first grade teacher. And she was
Oh, that's
just so
nice.
kind,
Yeah.
because sadly, especially when abusers are so practiced, like my parents were, and so
Mhm.
manipulative and so good at hiding what's happening, there's no way
Yes.
those teachers know, right,
Mhm.
what's going on. There's no
Well,
signs. Maybe now people are trained a little better to see the signs of, unrest at home. But she was just
in that era, I mean, when we were growing up, I mean, because you're talking late 60s,
yep,
70s, right? That
mid 60s. So yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
this was not a thing. People didn't talk about it. They didn't look for
nope,
it. They knew nothing. And
right.
so whatever the public face of, an abuser was, that's what somebody was going to believe, right? So,
Right.
oh, I think
Show
Tammy
pictures
froze.
of some scraggly looking guy with messed up hair and
Right, right.
nope, those aren't the strangers I needed to worry about. I don't know
Right.
about you. The ones
The
that
whole
I needed to worry about wore three-piece suits too.
Yes, that whole Chester the Molester, Econoline van, right?
Yeah,
That was stranger danger. That's where it happened. Somebody snatched you off the street. That was my biggest fear, right?
yeah, right.
Never realizing that the neighbor who was abusing me, who was a child or my parents' friends, child friend, that, oh, they can be abusers too. Wait a minute, but my parents like them. They think
Right.
this person is okay,
And
right?
that's where it gets so confusing. And
Mhm.
so that's what starts really messing with our head, right?
But you had some really good people in your life who were offsetting what you're being told at home, saying, "You are smart, you are doing well," and you had these kind teachers who, um, sounds like it had a big impact on you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a believer. My whole project that I do is called Build on the Light, and the reason is even in the darkest our, times of our lives, there are little pieces of light we can gather. And for me, it was things like that kindergarten, first grade teacher,
Mhm.
you know, just telling me beautiful when I tried to write the letter A,
Yes.
or telling me, "Oh, you're a good reader," things like
Mhm.
that. Those are the pieces of light that you hang on to, kind of a desperate hold because everything else, my parents not only vocalized, my mom especially vocalized how worthless I was and treated me, of course, like I was worthless, but also, um, being sexually abused,
Mhm.
it causes such a chasm between your spirit and your body.
Mhm.
For me anyway, maybe not everybody feels this way, but for me, being sexually abused, it was horrifying. I felt like my body betrayed me.
Mhm.
Later, it led to me just trying to ignore my body, you know what I mean, and not
Mhm.
taking care of basic needs and things, and it kind of messes with your sexual identity. It kind of, that's an understatement. It really messes with your sexual identity, whether you are heterosexual or whatever. It messes with that, right? It
Right.
messes with that
Absolutely.
identity. And I think for me, like all the cult activity and stuff, and the physical abuse. My mom was very physically abusive, and she wasn't like, "Oh, just lose my temper and throw something," which is horrible.
Mhm.
But hers was premeditated.
Mm.
She would come up with a plan how to just punish you. I think guess as I've gotten older, I'm like, I guess she was sadistic.
Yeah. It's
It's a
probably
bit,
a
maybe that's where she got her power
power
trips.
control. I was just going to say power control
Yeah,
aspect with that. Um, yeah, when sexual abuse happens, particularly for young children, right? I mean, we don't know any different. We're not born sexual. I mean, we see we have sex organs, but we don't know about sex. Our brains aren't wired that way. And
right,
when you introduce that to a child before they're able to contextualize it, I mean, it becomes your norm. And then later on, when you have outside influences, trying to um, rectify is not the right word, but trying to figure that out as
right.
to, wait a minute, I'm being told one
Resolve it.
thing here.
Trying to resolve.
Yeah. Being told one thing here and being told something else here. It's very confusing because, your parents, your home environment, I mean, these and the people your parents trust, right? These are the people you think are the ones who know better.
Right,
And so to go against that, especially where you've got this added, let's say, religion aspect
right,
onto it as well. It's not only just your parents telling you this thing, they're saying there's something even bigger out here that is the reason that we do this.
right,
And so that's just adding another layer onto you
right. Yeah,
with all of that.
it's and I guess that's why maybe I don't speak about the cult part of it so much, because it still is hard for me to kind of put it into words, without, because I don't want to give enough information to make it a training manual for
Um,
anybody that wants to try to control children.
right,
But
right.
at this, and then also triggering for myself,
Mm-hmm,
it's
mm-hmm.
real enough. And sometimes talking about it a lot, any of our traumas that we go through, you have to talk about it, but you have to know how much and
Yes,
when, and be really cognitive of your own safety, and your
absolutely.
own well-being, and you can only take so much
Yeah.
at a time. But so the cult activity, it was, you know, regular people you would see in regular society that,
Mm-hmm.
you would never suspect. In one place that we lived, there were, people that were part of a lot of prominent businesses and organizations
Mm.
that were doing so much good for the community, right? And
And then
but
you'd see the abandoned house later on a night. How
yeah,
often were you taken to meetings? I mean, was this like a daily thing or a once a week
no,
thing?
no. When I was younger, so like till I was 10. So we lived in Phoenix till I was 10. And during that time, to be honest, so like it probably from the time I was 5 till I was 10 years old, it was really only I maybe once a week, but I had 2 sisters, and so we would rotate
Okay.
who went. We didn't all 3 at
All
that point,
go.
we didn't all 3 go at the same time.
Okay.
So so it wasn't super regular, but the reinforcement at home
Yes.
was
Yes.
daily for sure.
Right.
But, the actual meetings, um, I didn't attend. I don't know what my dad did. Maybe my dad and mom probably attended things because we were home a
Mm-hmm.
lot by ourselves. My sister was
Oh, okay.
a year older than me, and I was 6, so she was 7, and she
Oh,
was in charge.
wow. Oh my
And we knew how to
gosh.
make Kraft macaroni and cheese for dinner when we did have dinner. So yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't know how much they went or what else they were doing,
Mm-hmm.
but so it wasn't a lot. But then when we moved to New Mexico for my dad's work, and those meetings were huge. Like the ones in Phoenix, that was in the little abandoned building. And, looking back, I can say, there were probably 20 people in there, 20
Mm-hmm.
adults, and then plus
Mm-hmm.
children. and pets and stuff. And then, but when we moved to New Mexico, that was a huge, thriving organization. And there
Wow.
we would, in the summer, fall, it had, pretty, we still had kind of some cold weather, but it was pretty warm most of the year. But a lot of the meetings were just out in the open air, out in the hills outside of town. And there were a lot of people, and those meetings, especially during the spring, summer, and fall months, were probably once a week. Never really put a time thing to it, but it had to be once a week. And
Right.
the horrific things that happened there, everything just got bigger.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, when you're talking 100 plus people, I mean, imagine you've got
yeah,
stuff going on all over the place
yeah.
with
So it
with
was,
people.
and and a lot of organization, a lot of people paying off other people to keep quiet. And
Mm,
by then, it was interesting because my dad became one of the leaders of the group, and he, I don't know, it's just hard stuff. But there was a lot of people that had kind of some perverse ideas they didn't want other people to know they acted on, and they needed
of
to keep it
course.
quiet because of their standing in the community or whatever.
Yes.
And so
Keep the public mask on, right?
this group kept the secrecy,
Mhm.
right? They would basically blackmail people and
Mhm.
get paid off and stuff. So anyway, and by the time, so this happened my whole growing up. By the time I was 18, and we were yet in another place, our fourth move in my growing up. But
Mhm.
by the time I was there, those years, the years of when I was 16, 17, 18, well, probably more 17, 18, are even hard for me to look at. And to be honest,
Mm.
I haven't come up with a good reason to look at it, because I've dealt with the trauma. I have screamed the screams and cried the cries, and
Yes.
gained the tools to move forward. And so I don't go there if I don't feel like there's a good reason for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we talk all the time here that, in order to heal from trauma, you don't have to remember absolutely
Mhm.
everything that's happened to you. And
Right,
even though we can access some memories, we don't have to. If
right,
if it's only going to cause us more pain, if we
right,
know that it's on the same subject that we're already dealing with, that is, it's a limitation you put for yourself, for
right.
your mental health, right? And that's 100% healthy.
And that's something that, so, talking about the healing aspect for
Mhm.
me, something that I learned early on. I guess I should talk about what happened, because here I had the traumas boxed away in different personalities. I had dissociative identity disorder,
Mhm.
not to the extremes of like the old movie Sybil or any of that, but
Right.
because it wasn't like I'm missing days or weeks, but when I was being subjected to trauma, a different part of me would take over.
Dissociative amnesia, I think
Yeah.
they term
Well,
it.
it's not really amnesia because it's stored away. That part of me has a name and a personality
Oh,
and
so it's more formed.
remembers all the specific.
Definitely formed in regards to that, but
Yeah,
just for that specific time
right.
period,
It was
right?
just for
So
that trauma. And then, so
and
if
that
it was a similar trauma, that part
yeah.
of me would come back up. And, okay, I'm the one that deals with this.
Yep,
This
yep.
one's the one that deals with that. So, and I didn't know I had that. And as much as I'm very frustrated that I had dissociative identity disorder, that I wasn't totally in control
Mhm,
of like my parents' part in my life as an adult for the
mhm.
first part of my adult life. And but as I've healed, I can see how it was actually a gift, but because the trauma was boxed away, it left the naive and believing part of me
Mhm.
to kind of orchestrate and guide my own life, right? And orchestrate my actions.
Let's back up just second and kind of get a transition. So you left college basically, or left home for college at
Right.
like
Oh, sorry. Yes.
18, right?
Right.
So you left and then you're in a total another environment and you're away from the cult aspect. And so
Right.
you're kind of living your life and you've got this DID going on and you're living it as, I don't know, we'll say your core self of just,
Right.
yes, who you think you are and who what you think the world is minus abuse, right? And is did you meet your husband in college?
Yeah, I did. And there's something important to talk about that. That being able to go away to college
Mhm.
was actually a gift from my step grandma, as it all turns out. She talked to
Oh,
my grandpa,
wow.
who I didn't know, like my grandparents, I don't know, they didn't come to our house hardly ever. We would go
Mm,
visit them, and that was my safe place.
yeah.
And I don't remember any negative, hard memories with them
Do
at
you
all.
think that they knew what was going on in your house and that's why they
I
didn't
don't
wanna
I
go
don't think
there? Or maybe your parents were just, "No, you
Yeah,
can't
I
come."
don't think they knew because it was secret. I
Okay.
mean, I know my mom's parents did not like my dad, and,
Okay.
um, and mom and dad were on their best behavior around my grandparents, which was really
Okay.
kinda nice, right?
Yeah.
But, anyway, so I had that luxury of being able to go to college, but it wasn't like that was, "Oh, yay, I'm free." I mean, that first semester at college, I mean, I had suicidal thoughts
Oh, I
because I didn't know how to live. I mean, I
yeah.
was so when I look back now, I didn't
Mhm.
understand it then, but now I can
Yeah.
see I was so in just survival mode.
Mhm.
How do you do things like buy books, figure out where your classes are,
Yeah.
make meals in your apartment? You know what I mean? I mean, like,
Well,
I
you picked up from one environment and just totally dropped into something else. It would
Yep,
go from 100% controlled every
yep,
aspect of your life pretty much to, "I have to do this all on my own. I gotta figure it all out. What do you mean there's 15 cereals to choose from in the
yeah,
grocery store?" You know?
right,
Can we narrow this down a little bit?"
right.
So
Well, and your brain, at least mine did, and I'm sure everybody's reacts a little bit differently. It, it's like part of it is just shut down, and I guess with the DID,
yeah.
I probably had a part of me that knew all about shopping. I don't know.
It
I don't
could
know.
have. Who knows, right? Yeah.
Right, but it was like I just couldn't function
Mhm.
outside of the trauma. I mean, I
Mhm.
did a little bit at school, growing up, going to school because I did well in school. So I had that down. The
Right.
school, being in a classroom and completing an assignment, you
That's
know,
okay.
I
Right.
I was okay with that, but the living part of it, the
Yeah.
day-to-day living part and getting to know roommates and
Mhm.
so it was really a struggle, but once I kind of got my traction and kind of figured it out, fortunately, my roommates were fine. I've
Oh,
heard
good.
horror stories about bad roommates,
Yes,
they were fine.
yes.
Nothing super special, but nothing horrible either,
Hey,
and
you'll take average any day, right?
yeah, and it was kinda nice probably that they weren't overwhelming, trying to be my best friend or something because then it just gave me space to figure
Right.
out, what I was doing, but, so, yeah, and I met my husband, interesting, um, and I can say this, I might be biased, he is really good looking, right?
Yay.
And he was
You're good
really
looking.
fun to
I
be
expect
around,
you to be good looking.
but the thing that I kept wanting to be around him because I felt like he saw the real me when I didn't even know who the real me was.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate, basically, I married him, he was cute and fun. Not enough of good criteria there, right? But I did have this sense that he saw and he wanted to draw out something good in me, like I don't like to use the word good, something worthwhile,
Authentic, the real you. Yeah, I think
valuable.
the real you, the authentic you. It
Yeah,
sounds like you felt very safe with him as well. There was
right.
no There was no big drama going on. There was
No.
there
Any
was
drama came
nothing.
from me. He's not a dramatic person.
So yeah, so and I that's very attractive to us,
Yeah.
right? When we're so chaotic on the inside, to have somebody else who is steady and just there and knows themselves,
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's something to
it's
hold on to.
yeah, it was really quite a gift. And I think, I think there's part of us that wants to believe there's something better than what we've experienced,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
And I we dated for about a year before we got married, but I broke up with him. And then, nope, I just wanted to be around him. And I mean,
Mhm.
it was a healthy way because I just felt more peace around him,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
He wasn't
Absolutely.
controlling or any of that kind of stuff. So that was the beginning of me being able to heal, because being on my own, I
Mhm.
found before I met him, or I guess I met him right away, but anyway, before we started dating, I was finding my feet and
Mhm.
I was kind of discovering who I was, what I
Yep.
liked, what I didn't like. Do
Mhm.
I like staying up way late? Do I
Mhm.
like, or do I like to go to bed early or,
Yeah,
whatever, just stuff.
exactly.
And what do I like to eat? I don't know if you're not starving to death,
Yeah, exactly. And you get
you know, what do I like to
you
eat? What
can
do
pick
I, and
and choose.
those kinds of things. So figuring that out and then adding the element of somebody that I felt safe and that I felt saw something good in
Mhm.
me. It's like he saw what it was I was trying to develop or something. I don't
Mhm.
even know how to put it. That started to create the safe, emotional, spiritual, and physical space I needed before those
Yeah.
dissociated parts of me could come up and say, you know what, I want to be a part of what you're doing
Yeah.
instead of staying separate, right?
Mhm.
So that was the beginning. That was the beginning of that. So did I clarify a little bit the
Yeah, absolutely,
transition?
because I know that when we talked before, that I think that that's it's a real transition period for you. And then you go through your 20s and you're married. And I think you start having kids at this point, right?
Yep.
And so you're really developing your own life. And now you're a mom and you're having to figure out how to be a good mom, what it is you want as
Right.
to be a good mom, what a good
Right.
mom is, and identifying all of that for yourself versus pattering,
Patterning.
patter, patterning, pattering. I'm missing that N. Off your mom, right? We get a lot of things from our parents, and sometimes we do the opposite because that's what we want. And so you're doing all of this and you're going through your 20s, and I know we discussed that it wasn't until you got into your early 30s that all of this trauma then really kind of came to the surface again. And I
Right.
wanted you kind of had a pivotal moment when that happened, and I wanted.
Huge pivotal moment. It wasn't something that just well, it kind of, I guess, drizzled in some ways, but the weird thing is that so I'm building a life. I'm married to our marriage is not perfect. My husband is not perfect. Don't get me wrong, but at least we could just build a life that we wanted, that
Right.
that was good for us. And the more I did that, and I always really struggled with my self-esteem, right?
Mhm.
Self-worth
I
and all that. And I didn't know why. Oh,
Yeah.
gee, well, I want my kids to feel better about themselves than I feel about. So I researched it, and everybody was all about chore charts and responsibilities, and
Yes.
which is good.
Chore charts, yes.
Nothing wrong with that, right? But I
Right.
really wanted to give my children a sense of self-worth. Well, nurturing them, being
Mhm.
super kind and listening would probably be a better path. But we did church charts.
There you go.
And but still, and then my husband and I had a home business. And so I was learning that actually I'm pretty good at organizing,
Oh,
so I was learning new skills that I didn't know I
mhm.
had. And just
That
feeling
helps build
better
your
about
self-esteem,
myself.
yeah.
And my husband, he's just someone that likes to be physically active and go do things. So we were always doing things with the kids and boating and, just out
Mhm.
playing basketball, just whatever, and just doing, just fun stuff.
Mhm.
He works really hard and he's also plays very hard. And so I'm feeling good about this life, kind of feeling good about me for the first time
Yeah.
ever. And the
Mhm.
more I felt good about me, the more I did not want to see my parents. And that just kind of made me feel guilty
Mhm.
because, oh, blood is thicker than water. I didn't
Yes.
say, yeah, right. No,
Because
kindness
at
is
that point, you didn't have anything to pinpoint and say, "Well, this
no,
is why I don't wanna see my parents." You just had this sense of, "That's ick.
right.
That's
Well,
that
and
that's no."
as abuse victims, we're trained that every bad thing we think, feel, or whatever happens is our fault. So, of
Mhm.
course, I'm not wanting to see my parents. It must be because I'm a worthless, terrible person,
Right.
right? And I didn't have any evidence. There were a
Mhm.
lot of feelings and uneasy kind of things. And then I am a praying person. I do believe in a kind and benevolent um, Father in heaven. But so I prayed thinking, oh, I need to correct this. I prayed that I could see my dad like he really was, you know? And wow, I
Not
had
what you expected.
it was not what I expected. Prior to that prayer, just memory, because I did have some off memories that weren't good. It
Mhm.
just kinda hung in the background, so it wasn't totally dissociated and boxed up, right?
Mhm.
But just, you have those vague memories, and so before
They
a few
yeah, they
weeks
bleed through, don't
yeah,
they?
a few weeks before, I'm like, "That's kinda weird that my dad did that," and then I remembered, ooh, I remember my dad throwing my sister up against a wall, those are things I never had forgotten, but,
Mhm.
you just put them in the back, old stuff, put it in the
Right.
background, whatever.
Doesn't affect my life right now.
Yeah, and so those things kind of started bleeding forward, and then and I think the trigger was my oldest son was turning, well, I know but this is what my trigger was turning 12, and my dad wanted him to come stay with him for the summer,
Mhm.
and something in my gut just went, "No." No, right? And I'm
Right.
trying to come up with a logical reason, and of course, my dad being an abuser and a manipulator, he's trying to make it like, "Oh my gosh, you won't even let me see my like, you
Yeah.
know, how can you deprive your child of his grandfather kind of thing?"
Right. Right.
And I had to in that phone call I blamed it on my husband. "Well, I gotta talk to my husband, I gotta talk to him about it," right?
Right, right.
And, and I just felt sick, and that's when I just really then I started guilt tripping and all that, and, so I said that prayer, and, within a day, I was thumbing through a magazine, and there was this kind of a pencil sketch that looked like a young girl in the corner of a closet,
Mhm.
like hiding,
Yeah.
and I don't even remember the article. It was something about somebody trying to find their inner self. And I'm not one, I like happy ending movies. I like happy ending books.
Mhm.
I don't
Same.
read, I
Yeah.
don't look for that. I never have looked for that. And now I know why I never wanted to look.
Right, right. No, we want the positive. We want the happy ending where everybody loves each other. I don't
Yeah.
even like my love stories to have those dramatic, breakup scenes or anything. I'm like, no, 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 no. Let's just have smooth sailing.
Yeah. I'm okay with Jane Austen kind of stuff, right? But it has to end good where,
Yes.
everybody's good people and it's all good.
100%.
Well,
Yes,
most everybody.
100%.
But anyway, and I saw that and something, and I don't know if other people have felt that as you're even things that you haven't fully dissociated, but something broke free in
Yeah.
a place inside me that is deeper than I
Mhm.
ever knew I was deep,
Mhm.
that it just like volcanoed up. And I started sobbing. It was the middle of the day. My youngest were in, taking a nap,
Mm-hmm.
so I always had my quiet time in the middle of the day. I did
Mm-hmm.
have some things that I did because I just knew I needed them. I'd never gone to counseling. I hadn't been on antidepressants or anything like that. But anyway, and I was just, the only thing that kept coming is my dad did something horrible to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it kept coming over and over with this just sobbing. Sobbing's not a strong enough word, the
Yeah.
convulsing
Yeah.
emotion that was coming up. And I called my husband at work, and that was he focuses at work, and that was a
Mm-hmm.
big no-no, but I had to, right?
Yeah.
I was, and interesting, usually he would have said, "Oh man, it's okay. It's okay. When I get home from work, we'll talk or whatever."
Right. Right.
But interesting, he was like, "I'm coming home right now."
He
That's
could he could
how
hear it in
how
your
bad
voice,
it
right?
was for
Yeah.
him to go, okay, and he came home, and um and I just was beside myself. So we called our ecclesiastical leader that really didn't know much about any of that, but he referred me to a psychologist, a
Mm.
therapist, and it took a week or something to get in, and in the meantime, after like a day or two, it seemed like it wasn't very long. Funny, once you start healing, then the timelines kind of all blur. When it's all coming out, it's very specific, and I know, but not, it didn't take, a couple of days, I think, before I could function. And it all
Mhm.
just settled down to where I'm going, what was that? I'm fine. It just totally disappeared.
Mhm.
And my husband's like, no, we should just go see the therapist, see what this is about. We don't know, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. And so all I had to do, I sat in the therapist office. And luckily, I kind of had a history with him just because I had taken this class about stress management,
Mm.
you know,
Mhm.
and I liked the guy, I liked his presentation. I liked his personality. So, and
Mhm.
even though I didn't have a one-on-one with him at that point, so at least it was somebody I felt like I already had an experience with that was positive.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I
It's
think
not.
that helped a lot. But he was a family marriage counselor, as it turns out.
Oh, okay.
But he just sat down, and I'm like, well, I don't know why I'm here. And he goes, well, just tell me what brought you here. What happened?
Right. Yeah.
Just start, just try to describe that day when everything fell apart.
Mhm.
And um, as soon as I started talking, it all came back again. Only this time it was with images of my dad molesting me,
Mm.
sexually molesting me when I was a little girl.
Mhm.
And it was overwhelming. I mean, it was really, in fact, we had our 50-minute session, and I could not contain myself. So the therapist, he said, I have one more appointment. And he told my husband, go take her, see if you can get her to eat something, and then just bring her back. I mean, it wouldn't, a lid would not go back
Yeah. Yeah.
on the emotions. So that's how, I guess, the healing started.
Yep.
You
You're
know?
not unusual, to
Yeah.
have that when you finally feel safe and your brain is like, okay, we think she can handle these memories now, that
Mhm.
there will be something that triggers us, and who knows what it is. And for you, it was this drawing. For somebody else, it could be seeing somebody who looks like it. Um,
Mhm.
a smell. We know our triggers can be anything. And we have many people in our community who one have experienced dissociation just like you have, as well as have had these moments where they've just kind of, you know, had this breakthrough where
Right.
all of a sudden these memories will just, flood ourselves. And they kind of kept coming for you
Right. Yeah. It was,
subsequent years. This wasn't a one-time deal for you. You continued along this journey.
you know, it was, it was a horrific whole roller coaster
Mhm.
for several years. And then the healing from the realizations has been decades.
Mhm.
But and and accepting, right?
Yeah.
Accepting the PTSD, the dissociation.
Mhm.
I have figured out the healing part of that, and it's really about my core self. Well,
Mhm.
it's about my dissociated selves feeling safe enough to
Mhm.
want to come into the present and into
Mhm.
reality, but it's also about my core self wanting them here
Mhm.
and appreciating the one that had a horrible temper and saying, "Thank you for protecting me."
Yes.
You know?
And thank you for the job that you did. I don't need you to do that job anymore.
Right.
I can handle being here in the present, but so everybody kind of can come back into our
Right.
our self.
So
And
that
I know
it
not
yeah, that
everybody totally integrates, but yeah,
you know
being appreciative of that is very healthy.
right, and I think, we're talking about you don't have to remember every single thing that ever bad happened to you.
Mhm.
Hallelujah, because I lived till I was 125 trying to come up with every stupid thing
Right.
that
Yeah.
caused me trauma. I'm not talking
Mhm.
little stuff, I'm talking traumatic things.
Mhm.
And every once in a while, I still have a new memory that pops up, but what I try to do this is what I learned back when I first started remembering things, because what happened is it started with the sexual molestation when I
Mhm.
was very little,
Mhm.
right? And then it had kind of the physical abuse of my mom a little bit in there, but it was almost like the 5-year-old me is like, okay, I'm ready, right? A 5-year-old is very trusting, right? So the 5-year-old was ready to come into the present, tell her story. But then as soon as I started going, okay, I'm dealing with sexual abuse,
Mhm.
got this. As soon as I started doing that, then more memories,
Mhm.
would come from when I was older. And then it
Mhm.
was about, cult activity.
Mhm.
And then the hardest one for me to accept was my mom's voluntary role
Mm.
in all of it.
Yeah.
And then came all the physical abuse from beginning, you know, because that was, I think, accepting the reality that you were really on your own. There was no safe person,
Mhm. Mhm.
in your home.
Yeah.
I mean, that it's just too much. It's just too much to handle.
Right.
And anyway, so that's kind of how it kept going for me. And at first, well, the first thing we did, and this is my husband said, "You're not talking to your parents anymore." Well, he said,
Good
"I'm not
boundary.
talking to your dad," and I'm like, "You're right." I mean, because I confronted my dad called me and I confronted him, and
Mhm.
there was no flat out denial. It was like, "It's old stuff." "Oh, poor Tammy." He never said,
Oh
"Right?"
my gosh, water under the bridge.
Yeah. Right,
I mean, was he
right.
still practicing or did they so it
Yep.
wasn't really old news, was it? It's,
Nope, he was just the whole manipulation thing. Anyway, so we
yeah.
cut contact with
Wow.
him right away, and then, by then, my parents had been divorced. They got divorced when I was 24, which was the most freeing thing that ever
Mm,
happened to me.
yeah.
Weirdly, I was like, "Whew, I only have to see one of them at a time," and I didn't know
Yeah, yeah.
why.
Yeah, this
But,
feels good. Well, we're not taught to trust our intuition, right? We're not taught
right.
to listen to our gut. Well, we weren't when we were kids. I
No,
know that I've tried to instill that in my son now more. Now that I
right,
know more about why we have that gut
right.
feeling, that's ourself trying to tell ourselves something.
Yep,
It's danger, danger, danger. Something is wrong. It may
yep,
be a little wrong or it may be a really big wrong, but we should listen to that. But we get those little feelings as we're growing up, and especially for us abuse survivors, we were always told something that negated that feeling, right? So we
right,
always were not listening to it.
right,
So to
right,
have those feelings and then to trust yourself with them is a huge step.
right, and that yeah, yeah. It was, yeah, yeah. I don't even know what else to say. But what I did learn, and then later, I don't remember how much later, and I still kind of had a relationship with my mom, but she was kind of standoffish anyway. She, by then she was living out of state and whatever. I went anyway, but she called me one time, and this is back when we had answering machines. You remember answering
Yeah.
machines?
With or without the tape.
Yeah, I can remember actually.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, but I remember coming home and there was a message, blinking on the answering machine, and I played it, and it was my mom's voice in this sugary, "Oh, Tammy, just thinking about you. I love you so much, honey. Give me a call." And
Oh,
it triggered me.
yeah.
It triggered me like I'm going to throw up.
Right.
I mean, she was fakey. She's just a different person anyway. But
So opposite of what your true self
yeah.
knew her
And
to
then
be.
at that point, I was learning, regular therapy 2 or 3 times a week at that point. And all I was doing was throwing up stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And my therapist, what I love that he did do, he was just perfect for me, because he was just like, he wasn't telling me what I needed to do. He was asking me what I thought I needed to do, and then he would validate, and it's like, I don't think you're making this up, and sometimes he'd say, this is why, whatever. But anyway,
Having somebody believe in you is
he believed me.
Huge.
Right. He believed me. He was just great. And he was very black and white, grounded in reality, and so that really helped out a lot. But I had learned, by the time I heard that message from my mom, I had learned about, I only have this much emotional energy, this much physical energy, right?
Yep.
I'm not wasting it on anybody outside these 4 walls. I had children, I had a husband, I had myself.
Yes.
Right. And so when I heard that and I had that kind of reaction, I'm like, you know what? Never mind.
Yeah.
Just never mind. And I wrote her a letter wishing her well, and, but I told her, I don't want to have a relationship with you. Cause at that point I didn't know the specifics, but I knew.
You just,
and I was learning to trust that gut. Like, you know what? I know. And I did know. She called me ugly. She told me nobody else could possibly love me. Who does that? And and then once you have your own children, you're like, seriously, I want my kids to feel like everybody loves them. You know what I mean? They're so lovable and they're so valuable. And I'm so blessed, to get to be their mom, and that kind of thing. But anyway, so we cut those ties. That was really important. But then what I wanted to do, I got tired of this new stuff coming up all the time. And I'm like, okay, forget trying to do regular life. I'm going to turn around. I'm going to look at the past and I'm going to clean the whole mess up and be done with it. That's me. Give me a list and I'll mark it off, right?
Yeah. It was only that easy.
But and this is something I think is really valuable for people to know if they haven't learned it already. Turning around and focusing on the past is never the right thing. It's not how you deal with the past. You have to, what I had to learn, because when I tried to focus on the past, all of a sudden everything was convoluted. I didn't know which was truth, which was lie, blah, 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 But when I focused forward, I'm like, I am going forward, and did as much as possible. Obviously, I had to really narrow down what I could do, and we kept it all to a minimum. We ordered pizza a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because of the energy levels. But if I focused forward and I had what I wanted in my life, then the things that from my past that were holding me back would just appear in front of me. It's kind of an interesting thing. It would appear in front of me, and then I'd have to work through that, because I am a firm believer, at least for me, everybody's different, but for me, I had to acknowledge the emotion and feel it.
Yes.
I couldn't say, well, it was in the past, I'm not a plastic smile person.
Mm-mm.
I'm smiling, I'm having a good day. And if
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm not. But I'm not, but I just don't do fake. I don't do
Yeah.
fake. And anyway, so that's what, and then when I would allow myself to scream and cry, and my husband had to learn to allow me to, this was a growing thing together, and we had some really difficult times in there.
Mm-hmm.
But once I learned how to just be okay with being a mess and
Yeah.
being okay with being powerless, because I think for me that's the hardest thing to accept when you're looking at sexual abuse, especially, but any kind of abuse, is to
Mm-hmm.
accept I was powerless. No, 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 no. It all happened because I wasn't good enough. So now, if I'm just good enough, then I'll have control over everything, right? And of course, we know that that's not the truth. But once I allowed myself just to cry, even though the emotion still often feels like it'll just consume me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so intense, right? It feels
Yeah.
like it's going to consume every bit of good in your life and suck it all dry. And but when I just try to trust the process, what I found is in every one of those, like it was like a box of dark stuff that would be in front of me, and really hard things and really painful things.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I was willing to feel the pain of it, there would be some gem in there,
Mm-hmm.
something beautiful, simple, little, that happened about the same time, right? That helped give me, and I could see that it helped give me light during the time those things were actually happening. And then I found them, rediscovered them so they could give me light while I was dealing with the effects
Right.
of it.
Well, and I think it's, one of the things that you said about, looking at the past, there's a line there, right? Between 100% being turned around and
Right,
focused on the past, because when we do that, we can't be even in the present, much less
right,
going forward. We
right,
cannot function in the present. And there's a difference between living our lives, taking a time out to look at the past
right.
and
But
deal with some things,
right,
than just 100% focused on the past, right?
right,
Whether that's specific memories, or whether that's feelings, or whether that's just a relationship in total.
right,
Those are things that we do. We do need to reconcile our feelings within ourselves, realize where our limits are in terms of
right,
how much can we deal with.
right,
And I just also wanted to touch on and say, about that sense of powerlessness. I think that, for some of us, when we come to that realization and understand how powerless we were and how awful it is to feel that, and then to understand and tell ourselves, yes, you were, but it wasn't your fault. The power was taken away from you. Whatever
right.
little power you had as a kid, which isn't much to begin with, right? It was taken away from you, and you weren't ever given any more power. And
I haven't heard it put that way, and I hadn't thought of it. That is really insightful, that it's not our fault that we were powerless. I think that'll adds a whole new dimension to accepting that truth of powerlessness, right?
yeah, I mean, like, think about
Wow.
kids growing up. I mean, since, you know, little kids, right? They don't have much power anyway. We tell them what to
No.
eat, we tell them what to dress, we tell them, and then along the way, we give them a little bit more independence and a little bit more. And your environment was 100% controlled. I mean, the only time you had any bit of power was at school. And
Right.
I fall right in there with you as well. I felt like my only breather from my day was when I was at school, when I wasn't being bullied, right? I mean, because
Right,
I had the
right,
bullying as well for
right,
different reasons.
right.
But as long as I could be in the classroom, learning about something, doing my homework, working ahead in the book, whatever it was,
Yeah,
I had power over my little bubble of environment.
yeah,
And we hold on to that because everything else is taken out of our control.
right.
And for me, you know, well, I'm just say, I understand 100%, when you're taken out of that environment and then you're thrown into, you have all the power in the world once you get to college and you're like, oh, what the, you
It's
know,
a little much.
it's, you're very much too much for a lot of people. It's very similar to what, people who get out of prison after they've been in prison for a long term, they have a real hard time with that adjustment because their day is 100% controlled going to, what do you
Mhm.
mean I've got to decide what I need to do today? This was always,
Right.
I was just told where to go. And so that transition can be extremely, extremely difficult. But
Yeah.
you not only went through the healing with your therapist and having a supportive person around with your husband and being able to work things out with him, you decided to go farther and you wrote a book about all of this. How did that come about? When did you get to a point that you said, I got something to say and I think I can say it? Because that's a leap. That's a leap for a lot of people to be able to say, okay, I'm dealing with this with my therapist and my husband to, I'm going to make this public.
Well, actually, it didn't feel like a leap. For one thing, the first off, I'm a writer by nature.
Mm,
I've always loved to write. I love music and I love writing and reading, of course. Reading and goes together, right?
yeah,
Listening to
right.
music, singing, it goes together. Playing the piano goes together. But I've always loved to write. I had my own private little journal growing up that I would
Okay.
hide away because you have to express somewhere. You've
Yeah.
got to, so that was my freedom. But then when I started going through these horrific things, now I never read a book about overcoming abuse in a cult. I just couldn't read that stuff. I just
Mm-hmm.
couldn't. But I did read healing books,
Mm-hmm.
books about sexual abuse. I read some of the books where they were totally into detail about all these horrors, and I didn't want that. No, I want
Right.
tools. Give me
Right.
tools. Give me tools,
Exactly.
right? But what I did find is the books that had tools weren't really super helpful unless there were stories that were validating my experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think when we go through any trauma, you feel like you're the only one that knows what this feels like.
Yes.
You're the only one. It's all feels like when I first started remembering things, it felt so bizarre. Like, really? What people do this? You know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just so bizarre.
Yeah.
And so it was so valuable to me that people were willing to share their story,
Mm-hmm.
a hopeful story, not
Mm-hmm.
just the gory details, a
Yeah.
hopeful story. And it helped me so much. And then so I'm writing, writing was a big part of my therapy. I would just write these memories.
Okay.
They came.
So you were journaling
That's how I
through
processed.
this. Okay.
I would limit it to 1 hour a day because I found if I allowed myself to write about these horrible memories longer than that, then I wasn't me anymore. It was a weird deal. But you can read about it in my book.
Well,
But
if you're like me, you can just keep writing, right? I mean, because
yeah.
like
Oh
one
yeah.
thought goes into another, and all of a sudden 3 hours have gone by, and I'm just like, have I accomplished anything? Because I have really gone through
Right.
some stuff here. So
Right.
that's a really good guideline to
But
say
but I
I'm
did. So
just going
I
to write
learned,
for an hour.
we learn the hard way, right? So I learned, for me, an hour. And even now, I'm working on my second book. And when I worked on my first book, I knew I couldn't work on it longer than 2 hours a day. I just couldn't,
Yes.
because I need to stay present, and it would draw me back into the
Yes.
past. And even when you're dealing with the past, you got to stay grounded in the present. So anyway, so I was already journaling all this stuff. And it was all kind of, the full picture was coming into focus, like, oh my gosh, okay, yeah, this. And then I had other validating factors that happened. And honestly, my husband and I were talking about it, and I'm like, I got to do something good with this. I got to help somebody else.
Yeah.
I got to help, because I call it recycling my garbage. Just if we have to experience all these horrible things, and if we've been privileged to find some tools for healing, if we share it, it kind of makes the healing part more real.
Yes.
Sounds a little selfish, but I do want to help. I want to help others. And my husband was like, yeah, let's do something good with this. And I had been told growing up I was a good writer, whatever, but it's my voice. It's my natural voice is in writing. And so it only took me 15 years because I had thousands of pages of material. What am I going to share? And what I wanted to share was just the good stuff. But when I tried working on that, there was something that said that's not going to help anybody, because the people that are really hurting are not going to think what they're going to do. So probably what took the longest time was figuring out, okay, I want pieces in there to validate people's pain and anguish and the reality of the stupid things humans will do to each other. But I wanted it to, the focus and the weight of it, hopefully, to be light. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I didn't want, because when I was trying to heal, there were some of those books that I read that would just kind of pulled you into the pit of the muck.
Yeah.
With no ladder out of it.
I remember one in particular that I read, and actually that it was a kid was in a cult.
Okay.
Jenny. I just remember the main character's name, but yeah, it was, and it pulled, everything was there. So it is, you've got all this stuff. I mean, even when, I was writing just a chapter, I wasn't writing a whole book. I was just, writing a chapter. It's how do you distill all this down so that you're still giving somebody enough of your background so that they understand what happened, without really getting into that nitty gritty of it. And then kind of moving on to the rest of the healing part of the journey. So yeah, I can understand why that would be difficult. You've got thousands and thousands of pages that you've been writing all of this to then, put down into a book. But
yeah, that made sense. And then honestly, as I was finishing it up, the last couple of years I was working on it, maybe even last year, I felt like, because I have a lot of friends that are not abuse victims, but they want to know, how do I help? How do I help somebody? And so by the end, it's like, you know what? And I also want this out there so other people who have friends and family members that are struggling can understand the process and to understand what this does to you. And that's my second book, is about the specifics of the damage that sexual assault causes and what we need to do to kind of rebuild from that. Because, I want to help people rebuild. We can. And there's been, I'm sure in your life, in my life, there's been several times where I don't know what kept me living, because I didn't, at one point, it's like, I don't even know how to live anymore with the weight of everything, I didn't know how. And another point, I didn't want to before that, but I just feel like we all, in our dark times, we need those lifelines of hope. And that's my
Absolutely.
goal.
Yeah.
That's my goal, is to just throw out lifelines, and whoever, if I have something that somebody else can hang on to
Mm-hmm.
get them through that darkest part,
Mm-hmm.
then that's what I want to do.
Well, journaling obviously sounds like was a huge anchoring or a huge,
Right.
tool in your toolbox. That's probably the big wrench that's in
Yeah.
there. What are some of the other tools that you found most useful when you were either looking at those memories or you were just trying to kind of make it through your day and you started feeling those emotions getting unregulated again? What did you grab?
The first thing let's see, that's a good question. And if, again, distilling, right? We have all this information and all this experience and trying to distill it. But one thing I remembered early on was, it felt like if I let the dark out, it would consume all the light in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very much a dark and light person, and I want to live in the light. And I had this image come to me, and I prayed. Like I said, I prayed a lot. That's a big tool for me. Is
Okay.
to believe in a higher power, a benevolent, loving higher power, not a higher power like my parents taught me, right?
Right.
A benevolent, loving, caring higher power, and talk to him,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, however you see it.
Mm-hmm.
But so I did do that a lot. And as I prayed, like in a really dark place, like because you just look at all this crap that's just exploded all over you.
Right.
And, how do I get through it? Just kind of what
Mm-hmm.
it came to me that if I'm sitting in a dark closet and there's a light room on the other side of the door, if the door opens, the light comes into the darkness. The darkness does not go into the light. And so for me, I guess a lot of my tools are about mindsets,
Okay.
about thought processes, so then I'm like, so when I feel so overwhelmed and feeling like the dark is going to suck everything dry, and I still have those moments,
Mm-hmm.
you walk
Yeah.
along and think, oh, I'm doing good. And next thing you know, how did I get in the pit again?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You
I
know?
was doing so well and now I'm taking that step back. Sorry, bad day.
Yeah, whatever. But for me anyway, it's those mindsets, so I can recognize, okay, and reassure myself that the dark is not going to consume the light,
Mm-hmm.
but the dark will consume me if I don't let it out in productive
Mm-hmm.
ways, right?
Right.
Other tools besides the thought process stuff, other tools are exercise outdoors. And if you
Yes.
have a trusted friend you can go walk with, I was blessed to have a couple of different friends that just, they didn't save me, they didn't cure me, but
Right.
they believed me, they listened,
Mm.
and they wanted to have fun, so I could go walking with them. And that's a triple whammy. You got a close friend you can talk
Yeah.
to, not that we always talked about all the drama, but that you
Right.
can just be real with.
A support person.
You
Right.
have the outdoors, which is
Yes.
healing all by itself,
Yeah.
and you have movement.
Yeah.
Physical movement helps ground you in the present. So
Yeah.
those three things. And for me, journaling, big deal. So when my kids were all still at home, and I still do it actually, I'd get up at 5 o'clock in the morning just so I could have my quiet box
Yeah.
space
Mm-hmm.
to breathe, to feel, to write,
Mm-hmm.
and to communicate with my higher power. And I would do that for about an hour every
Okay.
day. Now I have the luxury of doing that a little longer every day, but I have to have, and I have to have the right pen to write with, because it doesn't work for me to type. It doesn't work for,
Yeah.
for
No,
feeling
same
journaling.
way.
You
Yeah.
got to have the
Pen and
pen.
paper.
So the notebook has to be the right notebook, and the pen has to be, and the chair has to be in the right spot.
There you go. I got to get everything set
So,
with that.
but I think part of that too, just doing that, is learning self-care, doing those
Yeah.
things, learning self-care. Okay, what do I want to do? I want to journal, right?
Hmm.
And making time for that, which is really hard, I think, as abuse victims to prioritize ourselves.
Oh, yes, very much so.
Still struggling with that, but I can
Yeah.
look back and go, okay, there are a few things I got right. And then also, I'm just thinking of different tools. Another one,
Yeah.
you get angry because I mean, anger is only a secondary emotion. It's usually hiding fear or pain,
Hmm.
right? But you still got to get through the anger. And
Yeah.
so on the way home from one of my counseling appointments, I stopped and bought a punching bag.
Hey.
And,
Yeah.
a big punching
Yes.
bag. My husband, I don't know how he knew, whatever, but he got me the right gloves because I was just going at it with my bare hands. He goes, no, 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 you're going to hurt yourself.
Oh, you're going to be
But
cracking and bleeding soon.
yeah, well, and then also how you have to. So, okay, if you're going to use a punching bag,
Yes.
get tips from somebody that knows how to do it, YouTube or whatever, because if you don't hold your hands straight, you can break your wrist.
Yes.
When you're that mad, right?
Yes.
Like
And
you
never
get,
put your thumb inside. Always have your thumb outside.
yep.
So
And you got to have a straight, anyway, whatever.
yeah.
There's your little boxing lesson. But what I did, and so I would draw I'm not an artist. I would draw just a little stick face kind of thing and call it mom or call it dad or call it this person or that person, tape it on my punching bag and
There you
go
go.
at it. Because then once you get the anger
Yes.
released, then you can deal with, and then, I would collapse and, in sobs, but then you can deal with and process the fear, the pain, the anguish,
Yeah.
So,
All
so
that
those are,
underlying, all those
yeah.
underlying feelings. And I
And
think I think it's so important because you're recognizing and you're validating your anger,
right.
right? Because
Right. You
so
can't say I
often,
shouldn't be angry. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Do
Because
that.
everyone's just like, calm down, calm down. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'd hear that in my house, right? And yet
Right.
my dad's yelling at the top of his lungs all the time.
Right. Right.
So anger was not okay
If you're the
to
one feeling
have.
it.
If you're the one, yes, yeah, getting it, no problem, but expressing it, big problem. So validating that, yes, it's okay to be angry, and it's okay to feel that, and
Right.
validate that it's an okay feeling. Now you may have to look at it once you're done and say, you know what, I was kind of wrong there. Yeah, I was
Right.
angry, but I need to apologize for something, I mean, look,
Yeah.
or we'll look at it and we go, oh yeah, no, I have 100% right to be angry about all of that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think that's a great. I was involved in Taekwondo since I was 9, and
Oh,
I think that is one of the things that saved me.
right.
Is having that outlet and going to those classes all the time, because we weren't always fighting, but we were definitely moving and hitting the air,
Right.
and so that was kind of my way to get all of that out.
Doesn't it feel like it seems like that would give you a sense of power because you're controlling your legs. 'Cause I've had grandkids that are in Taekwondo and you go watch and, you have to do it, the kick a certain way and this,
Yes,
so
yes,
it seems like that would be empowering to,
it's
you're making your muscles.
100% empowering,
Yeah.
and it is, part of it is you have to learn to control your power, because,
Ah,
you can kick somebody and kick them really hard, right? When you're sparring, but that's not the goal. The goal is to get a point.
right.
So it's to connect, but we're not trying to kill the other person. So you have to control your power as well. So you're learning to control your own body.
Yeah.
And that's a sense of power over yourself. And
Right.
so for me, we did a class. They had a class that came into the Y where we were members, and I did it. And I was always, I was 5'4" by the time I was in 6th grade. I grew up very fast,
Me
tall,
too. Me
very
too.
fast. And I have a picture from when I was 11 that my grandmother took from kind of far away. And I look like the silliest person because it's like from my head to my waist is like this. And then there's legs. just just legs. And, so I was very good at the kicks. And they told me, they're like, you're really good at this. And I remember going, I think that's one of the first times somebody's told me I'm like really good at something. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
really good at schoolwork. Yes, I know I'm smart there, but at outside something outside school, never had somebody tell me that. And
right,
so for me, that was one of my moments where, and I just held on to that for a long, long time. So
right,
it sounds like even though you don't say it, in everything that you do, you're also practicing mindfulness. You are very aware of trying to be present in today.
right. And it's hard because I like to look at it. Um, I guess, I keep thinking of all these tools now, but one of the other tools that is about that is it's like if our eyeballs, it feels like our emotional or I don't know, whatever, our inside eyeballs are like
Mhm.
on antennas, right? You know, and they
Yeah.
should be looking out. But I think with trauma, they tend to go like this, and you're all
Mhm.
absorbed in you and in your own pain, which is understandable, right?
Right.
But there's a point where you have to go, okay, I need to get these eyeballs turned outside. And so
Mhm.
that's a tool I use. And so when I'm really in the depths, um, I just try to do something that turns those eyeballs, like whether it's just texting somebody, hey, how are you doing? Just trying to get
Mhm.
outside of me,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then the other tool that I thought one thing that helps me with that too is I am very fortunate, and I think unbelievably fortunate that I do have a partner that is
Mm.
absolutely trustworthy.
Mhm.
And so what I find is when I get in a really bad place and then I do kind of get a little like, I'm fine, everything's fine, because I can do it
Mhm.
all. I can do it all. I can do it all. But if I stop and allow myself to open up and say, you know what, I'm struggling. I get negative thought tornadoes. That's my
Oh,
biggest
yes.
nemesis. And so if I stop and tell my husband, and that's all I have to tell him, I'm
Mhm.
having just so many negative thoughts. I don't know what to do. And sometimes that's as far as the conversation has to go. And he'll say, well,
Mhm.
can we talk about it or whatever? Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes I end up opening a whole big pile of something that I
Mhm.
didn't realize was there that I'm trying to hide it by just doing.
Mhm. Yeah, focus on something else
Yeah.
and
So
we'll
I
get
think
there.
I think, yeah, mindfulness, but I think it's like an internal mindfulness. Be aware of who you are. Be aware of what you're doing. I know people that they don't even have a clue. They're saying one thing and acting totally different. They're saying like, "Oh yeah, I don't boss anybody around," or yeah, it's terrible when people boss people around, and they're bossing people around all over the place. And I
Yeah.
not that they're bad, but it's just like, no, be aware of
Self-awareness.
yeah, do your words and actions really reflect what you know and feel need to be part of who you are, right?
Yeah. Well, I think there's two important things that you said there. I mean, one is just about the importance of having a support system. I mean, and
It
that's
is.
one of the main reasons why
Well,
I
and to
started this
use it,
channel.
to
Yes.
use it.
And that's why I love it when people come in here and they talk to each other and they find each other on other channels. And some of them are even friends now off site, which I think is just fabulous. And
Right.
I also got into helping other survivors from that selfish place of it made me feel good, right? Just
Yeah,
helping other people makes us feel good,
it
but
does.
particularly helping other survivors, there was just something about it when I could tell them, "Hey, I'm one of you." Once I
Right.
realized it was okay to be one of them because I had a
Right.
whole other set of back issues with
Right.
that, but,
Right.
uh, so those were the 2 main draws for me for starting this channel, but, um oh, shoot, you said something. Oh, eh, also about, being vulnerable, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable with our support system because we were so vulnerable growing up or during our trauma or whatever,
Mhm.
it was, that we don't like that feeling, and
Right.
feeling like we're giving up power and being vulnerable with other people. But yeah, finding that connection with somebody, whether it's online or whether it's in person, I think is just so important, is so critical.
Absolutely.
And
Vulnerability, not being afraid of the vulnerability. I think that one will take the whole rest of my life to really master.
yeah,
But
yeah.
but,
Mhm.
that's why doing stuff like this is good. It's good because it's, finding your support group and then allowing yourself to be vulnerable helps reinforce that the world isn't out to get you. The whole
Mhm.
world isn't horrible. There are a few gems in there. Right?
There are some good people still left, right? And
Yes.
and I think the other thing that you said about, self-awareness, I think a lot of trauma survivors, um, we face this, especially if it's childhood. Our authentic selves get buried
Yes.
underneath all of everything
Yeah.
that's been done to us and everything that's said to us. And we're never going to know who we would have been had it not been for all of the trauma. But
Right.
there's still a core there of
Yes.
who we are, what we like.
Yes.
I like green. I like the number 2. That's not gonna really change. It's just, those are pieces of me.
Right.
Um, but we can, even if we're dealing with our trauma or starting that healing journey, um, I think some people, sometimes, we don't look inside ourselves and really try and figure out who we are. We can say, "Oh, I'm going to deal with the trauma, and I'm emotionally regulating, and I'm
Right.
I'm dealing with all these external factors."
Right.
But being able to look inside, I have a distinct memory of being 22 in my kitchen. I was married at the time. Something came up, no idea what it was, and people were talking and giving their opinions about things. And I just remember standing there and looking at everybody, and just in my head, I'm going, I have no clue what I feel about that. None
Yeah.
whatsoever.
I
And
can
that
relate.
then brought back more of, you know, I don't know what I think about a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think that because somebody else thinks that, or yeah, that sounds logical, but is that what I really think or
Right.
how I really feel?
Right.
And that was the first moment that I realized there was something missing. I had a lot of self identity work that needed to be done, and it really wasn't until years later
Right.
that I really started to work on that and understand how to
Yeah.
build up that piece of me.
Yeah.
But I think that is an important piece, that when we talk about healing, that it's not only dealing with all the external trauma, dealing with the emotions that we feel, but also nurturing ourself. And yes,
Absolutely.
self-care, right, goes into that, but there's also that just looking internal work, and being kind to our inner child, and finding that person and
Right.
building them up and validating them, that helps us grow
Right.
right in the
Right.
present, because we can go through our lives and we can get better at dealing with trauma and emotions, but we also still want to grow as people.
Yeah. Well, and I think just really, I don't know. I think you can reclaim that authentic original you. I really do. I think it's in there. I think it's like this core of light,
Hmm.
and it gets buried by debris. Like in the book I'm working on, I talk a lot about building. My husband and I had a construction company for years, right? I designed the plans or the houses, and he built them. So
Hmm.
building is in my metaphorical brain. But I think of, it's like this authentic self is like a hurricane came through and threw debris, all kinds of crap all over it, but it's still there. The core, the
Hmm.
foundation of the building we had is still there. We
Right.
just got to figure out how to uncover it and then claim it as something valuable. instead of
Yes.
trying to toss it out with all the trash, right?
Mhm.
And reclaim that value. And I think like the exercise, the outdoors, those things help
Mhm.
us connect, but also finding things for me. I mean, from the time I was little, I loved to dance.
Mhm.
My dad had a really nice singing voice, and we would sing in the car. That's a good memory I have. Just because
Mm.
you had abusive parents doesn't mean every memory with them is terrible,
Right. Yes.
right? And but I love to sing, and not that you'll ever hear me sing,
I'm
unless you're
right there
riding in the
with
car with me.
you.
Unless you're riding in the car with me, then you'll definitely
Great
hear me
car
sing.
singer. I am an awesome car singer.
But then, so like as I'm healing, right? Because all that stuff got buried with life and with the trauma and everything. And so then as I'm healing and I'm uncovering the pain of, my little inner child, then
Mhm.
I remembered full on about just being out on the sidewalk in front of our house, singing my brains out and dancing on the sidewalk. I remember getting up early on a Saturday, not to watch cartoons, but to watch American Bandstand and dance and try to mimic the dances. And and then as a teenager, I had the opportunity to tap back into that dance. And that was the beginnings of finding, ooh, I have something worthwhile here, right?
Yeah.
And then as I've healed and then just finding, I did have an opportunity to take some piano lessons when I was, I don't know, 11, 12,
Mhm.
13, for about 6 months is all. But
Did
I
we grow
loved it.
up in parallel
I don't,
universes?
yeah, that is interesting, isn't it? But for me, as I healed, I kind of rediscovered, I'm like, I remember how that felt to play the piano, and even poorly, although
Mhm.
my music teacher said, "Oh, you have a gift." She probably said that to everybody, but you know what? I took it in.
Hey,
But the
pat
thing
yourself
is
on the
when I
back.
play the piano,
Mhm.
it wakes up something in my soul, and so I think if we can find those things that
Yeah.
wake up something in our soul. I'm not just talking the physical sensations. There's a lot of adrenaline things we could do,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
I'm like that like kind of this cool,
Really
powerful thing that
speak
comes
to
out.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, that and anyway, so I think if we can find those and they're different, that's what's cool. Every one of our paths is different.
Yeah.
Every one of our lives is going to look different. If your life looks perfect for you and mine looks perfect for me, they're probably not going to look anything alike,
Yeah.
right?
Somebody can paint, somebody can garden, somebody
Yeah,
can, whatever. Taekwondo martial arts is
yeah,
really at the core of mine. Um, yeah, we're all different and it's okay.
yeah. And
Right.
it's
And
good.
celebrate. Yeah,
It's
celebrate our differences.
beautiful. It's beautiful that we're all
100%.
different. It's like music, going with music, right? How boring would it be to listen to one instrument? Like if you're going to a concert, listen to one instrument for 2 hours. No,
Yeah.
you got to have all the extra stuff in there. You
Yeah,
got to have one
exactly.
person that's good at this and one person that's good at that. And, you have to have the different instruments, and even with the same instrument, different parts that are being played. And then it gets wow. And I think that's like it is in life, when we each can just really be our authentic self and kind of come together and kind of
Mhm.
complement each other's talents and gifts. It's a beautiful thing.
100%. I mean, and I think that also leads us to judge less, right?
Yeah. Yes.
When we can be compassionate and kind and
Yeah.
caring to others, celebrating those differences and not judging somebody because they look different, they like something different, uh,
Right.
they have a different background, whatever the case is.
Right.
That, yeah, just one human being to another. Well,
Yep.
we have been going for a long time, Tammy.
Oh, we
I
have.
thank you so, so much for sharing your story and going through this. I think I want to end with, and I had asked you about this before because I commented it, but I would love if you would explain why you have that necklace on.
Oh, thank you for asking. So I know the whole thing about butterflies and rebirth and transformation. And I do love those ideologies. Obviously, we're all hoping that we can have that kind of transformation when we feel like some little slug looking thing. But the reason that I love butterflies, like I just said, where just because you have horribly abusive parents, which mine were horribly abusive, doesn't mean that every single memory associated with them is bad.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was a great seamstress. And when I was little, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old, she made me a dress, and it was white fabric with all these different color butterflies all over the fabric. And she came to me and she said, "Look at this. I thought that would make the prettiest dress for you." She made other dresses for me before that, after that, and there was always some weird tie to it, something that was kind of sinister a little bit, or just it was a show-off thing for her. But my butterfly dress, there was a connection there when she showed me the fabric. It felt like she really just wanted to make something pretty for me. And it wasn't something, she didn't make identical dresses for my sisters, which is usually what she did.
Right.
It was just for me. And so the butterflies, I had one little moment, and it's probably the only little moment of feeling loved by my mom I ever had. But I cherish it.
Yeah.
I cherish that. And so I try to, since I've embarked on this whole sharing my message thing, I always try to wear a butterfly to remind me that I am loved and I am lovable. And hopefully, when I get the opportunity to share that story, help other people remember however much garbage there is some love in there for you. There's love in there for you that you can build on.
You can always find the good in something, right? And just because we may have even disconnected like you have from your parents, it doesn't mean we can't treasure those good moments.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you have, I mean, not everybody does, but most of us have a moment or two that it's like, that was special. I really remember that, and you can hold on to that and say, yeah, this was something.
And it doesn't negate all the pain and the
No.
suffering, and it doesn't give my mom license to
No.
have power over me nowadays,
No.
But it is a treasured memory.
Yeah, that's great. So thank you, Tammy. I so appreciate you being here. I know that we are going to be talking later. So you guys know I am going to be recording some podcasts for Tammy for her channel. So once those get recorded and we've got a date and a link for those, I will definitely share those out with everybody here so that you can watch those over on her channel. I know some people already went over. Carmel or Misha, who was in here, two of my wrenches, posted your link to your book and also posted the link to your channel, your YouTube channel, and several people have already subbed. So
Thank you.
Have some new members from that as well. So
thank you. You know what? The more we can just help each other out, right?
Absolutely.
We can just
keep building community, and that's what this is all about. So
absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here, and I really appreciate it. And I will talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys, that was Tammy René. Wow, what an incredible interview. I know that, we have gone long today, but she just had an amazing story. And to come out on the other side, to be where she is, written a book, doing podcasts, writing a second book, just amazing. So yeah, I would think I'm talking to her actually tomorrow. I think I'm supposed to be doing those recordings. And we are going to be kicking off our human trafficking series. I'll announce this again on Saturday, but I'll just do it real quick on here. So next Wednesday is going to be the first meet of the meet for starting our human trafficking series with a lady by the name of Laura K. K is her initial of her last name. And we are going to be talking about sex trafficking 101. She is going to take us through it. What is it? Who does it? Who are the victims? What can we do? You know, how can we help? And it is going to be a great show. I'm getting everybody else lined up. I'm hoping to be able to announce the entire lineup by Wednesday, or at least the first half of the lineup for you guys. So look for that. That will be coming as well. All right. I will see you guys on Saturday. I promise this Saturday, I do not have a guest scheduled, so I will be doing a book raffle. So if you are there and put book in the chat, I will be raffling off one of my books. I don't have to worry about holiday pricing now, which was absolutely insane for shipping prices. Oh my gosh. I mean, $15 just to send to North Carolina. I'm like, it's just a book. It's this big, guys, you know. But so we should be better now that we're past the holidays. With that, I want to remind you, you are worthy. You are valuable and you are loved just the way you are for who you are. So hugs and love from me. Mwah. Bye, guys. Surviving together, never alone. Enjoy the outro.
Through the fire, through the rain, we have walked through endless pain, but we stand, we rise again, stronger now, we break the chain, surviving together, hearts open wide, lifting each other through every tide. The past may have shaped us, but it won't define. Together we heal, together we shine. Every tear, every scar tells the story of who we are. Not just survivors, but warriors too. With love as our armor, we see this through. We see you, we hear you, and we believe in you. Surviving together, hearts open wide, lifting each other through every tide. The past may have shaped us, but it won't define. Together we heal, together we shine. We see you, we hear you, and we believe in you. Surviving together, hearts open wide, lifting each other through every tide. The past may have shaped us, but it won't define. Together we heal, Mm.